Isin biraan gahuu itti fufeera. Barnoota herreegaa kutaa afuraffaa hanga 8ffaa, afaan Oromoo, afaan Amaariffaa fi afaan Ingiliziin, barnoota Ingiliffaa kutaa afuraffaa hanga 8ffaatti, barnoota dabalataa beekumsaa fi hubannoo barattootaa cimsan, wiixataa hanga jimaataa, guyyaa sa'aatii 11 hanga galgala sa'aatii 2tti, sanbata xiqqaa fi dilbata, ganama sa'aatii 2 hanga guyyaa sa'aatii 6tti, chaanaalii EMN Pilaasin isin biraan geenya. Barnoota dabalataa tamsaasa televezyiinii, hubannoo fi beekumsa barattootaa cimsuuf, Addis Miidiyaa Neetwork sagalee dhaloota.
Hello and welcome to grade 7 English class. This class is brought to you by Addis Ababa City Education Bureau in collaboration with Addis Media Network. This class is taken from Unit 5, Lesson 16. The topic of today's lesson is will and going to. Lesson 16. Our topic, as I said before, is will and going to. So these two are things that you talk about, you read about, you write about, and you listen about when you are practicing English. So let's begin with will. When we begin with will is a modal verb. Before we go on to explain what that is, let's talk about modal verbs first. Modal verbs are verbs that are also called auxiliary verbs. Auxiliary verbs are verbs that are called helping verbs. They are used in a sentence to help verbs and explain them further. So will is one of those modal verbs. There are also other types of modal verbs. For example, like can and could, shall and might and must and have to. All of these are modal verbs, and they are helping verbs in a sentence. We use them to talk about advice, to talk about ability, to talk about obligation, to talk about responsibility. So today's lesson, we're going to talk about will as a modal verb and the many ways in which we can use it in sentences. So how can we use will in sentences? The first one is future predictions. When we want to talk about future predictions, we use the modal verb will. How can we use will to talk about future predictions? Let's do some few examples. First example, for example, I will go to Addis Ababa University. We have used will here as a future prediction. We are predicting that someday in the near future or in the far-off future, we will go to Addis Ababa University. So this is our dream, the thing that we want to do in the future. So we use will as a future prediction. What else? She will visit her grandparents this weekend. She will visit her grandparents this weekend. Again, we have used will to talk about future predictions, things that we will do in the near future. This weekend is very near, so she will visit her grandparents in this weekend. This is the first way we can use the modal verb will, by predicting future. What about other things? How other ways can we use the modal verb will? The second way that we can use the modal verb will is by spontaneous decisions. Spontaneous decisions. What does that mean? Spontaneous decisions means deciding something at the spot, at that moment. So when we do that, we use will as well. For example, I am hungry. I will make food. We have used will again here. How did we use it? To talk about a spontaneous decision that we have decided at that moment, at that exact moment. So when we say spontaneous decisions, we're talking about decisions we make when we are talking about something. So here, when I say I am hungry, I am talking about how hungry I am. So we keep on, or we continue on to say I will make food. Because I am hungry at this moment, at the moment of speaking, then I will go on to make food. So we will use a modal verb will to talk about spontaneous decisions. Okay, what about another way we can use will, the modal verb will? The other ways we can use it is to talk about offers and promises. When we are talking about offers and promises, we also use will. So how can we give example when we are talking about offers and promises by using will? Okay. For example, don't worry. I will call you when I arrive. Again, we have used the modal verb will. So don't worry, I will call you when I arrive. So we are making what? We're making assurances to tell that person that is worrying about us, do not worry, it is okay, I will call you when I get there. So we don't only use will to talk about offers and promises, we can also use it to talk about assurances. What other ways, other examples can we give here? I will buy you a birthday gift. A birthday gift. I will buy you a birthday gift. Again, we have used the modal verb will, but here we have used it to talk about a promise. The first example, we have used it to talk about assurances, assuring someone that we are going to do something. But in the second example, we have used the modal verb will to talk about a promise, that we will do in the future. I will buy you a birthday gift is promising someone that they will prepare a gift for that person for their birthday. Okay, what other ways can we use will again? To talk about refusals and willingness. To talk about refusing something or saying I am willing to do something, we also use the modal verb will. So how can we do that? Let's have a few examples. For example, she will help you if you ask her nicely. She will help you if you ask her nicely. So again, we are using will to talk about refusals or commands. But in this example, we're talking about refusals or willingness. In this example, we're talking about how we can use will to talk about willingness. So when we say she will help you if you ask nicely, we're saying she is willing to help you if you are nice about how you ask her to help you. So this is one example about willingness. What about refusal? He will not help me is another example of how to use will when we're talking about refusal and willingness. For the first example, she will help you if you ask nicely, is using will when we're talking about willingness. Or in the other example, he will not help me is telling us the refusal. So we're using will here as refusal. We're talking about it as refusal. So these are some of the ways we could use will. There are also other ways, extra ways we could use it. Requests and commands. We can also, again, use will to talk about requests and commands. Okay, let's again see some examples. Will you assist me in this project? Will you assist me in this project? So we are requesting if someone can assist us in a project. So we have used will in a request. What about commands? You will not leave your room until you finish your homework. So you will not leave your room until you finish your homework is one way to use the modal verb will to talk about commands. So this person is commanding the person who's studying not to leave their room until they have finished their activities, their homework. So this is how we can use the modal verb will to talk about requests and commands. The other one, and the final way we can use the modal verb will is to talk about habits. and characteristics. Or behaviors. When we're talking about someone's behavior or characteristics or something's characteristics, we can use the modal verb will. So how can we use it? Let's see a few examples. For example, dogs will bark at strangers. Dogs will bark at strangers is one example of the modal verb will when we're talking about characteristics or behaviors of dogs. When you see a lot of dogs, if they see strangers, they bark at them. Not all of them, but most of them. So these could be characteristics of dogs. So when we're trying to talk about characteristics of something or habits of someone, we use the modal verb will. What other examples can we give? She will leave the lights on. Again, we have used the modal verb will to talk about habits of someone. She will leave the lights on indicates she frequently does that. Or I will wash my face in the morning is also talking about a habit of someone. Washing your face is habit. This is something we do routinely in the mornings or at night. So we use will to talk about habits and characteristics of someone. So that is it of how we could use the many ways we could use will. So now I would give you a few minutes to write sentences that use will. In what way would you use will? We have seen about, I think, 6 ways we could use will to talk about future predictions, to talk about promises, to talk about refusals, to talk about commands, habits. So how would you, in your home, use will in your sentences, the modal verb will in your sentence? So I will give you a few seconds to write 3 sentences. So I want you to focus on habits and future predictions. Future predictions. So I will give you a few seconds to write your sentences. Okay. I'm sure you did well writing your sentences, and I'm sure it is easier for you because we have already discussed the many ways in which we could use will to write different sentences. So let's do it together. The first sentence we could talk about is using will to talk about promises. Promises. I will see the movie with you tonight. If we say, I will see the movie with you tonight, we are promising that we will be there with our friend or our family or some acquaintance we have to see a movie with them tonight. So we have used the modal verb will to promise something, a future endeavor. What about when we want to talk about habits of someone or something? She will read a book before she goes to bed. She will read a book before she goes to bed. This is also using modal verb to talk about habits of someone. Some people have different rituals, routines that they have when they go to bed or when they wake up from bed. Some people like reading books, some people like watching movies, and some people like doing other stuff. In this case, in this sentence, we used she will read a book before she goes to sleep. So this indicates how this is her habit. What about future predictions? They will win a competition. So we have used future prediction to predict something that will happen in the future, which is what? To win a competition. They will win the competition. We have used will to talk about future predictions. So these are all the ways you could use the modal verb will. And don't forget, our topic is will and going to. Since we have seen in detail how we could use will in sentences, now we're going to go to going to and see how we could use going to talk about future predictions like will. In the case of going to, we usually use, we have to use the verb to be with going to. We use the verb to be with going to. So, unlike the case of will, we don't have lots of ways that we could use will, going to, but we have a few ways. The first way we could use going to is to talk about future intentions or plans. Future intentions or plans, we use going to. Let's see some examples of how we could use going to in future plans. They are going to visit. Okay. They are going to visit the school. This afternoon. They are going to visit the school this afternoon. We said future intentions or plans. This is a plan people have, going to visit someplace. So we are using, don't forget, we use the verb to be with going to. They are going to visit the school this afternoon. A future intention or plan. What is the other way we could use going to? The second way we could use going to is future predictions. If you remember, we also use future predictions to talk about the modal verb will. But what is the slight difference when we're using going to and the modal verb will? Well, the slight difference is in the future predictions, when we're using going to, we have we base our idea on evidence. That is the slight difference how we use future predictions when we're talking about going to or will. So, in going to, when you're using going to in examples, we have to have strong evidence, or we have to base it on evidence. For example, Look at those dark clouds. Look at those dark clouds. Exclamation mark. Look at those dark clouds. It is going to rain. We have based our idea on evidence. If you look up and see dark clouds, that is evidence to indicate that it is going to rain. So we use the evidence that we have to continue on to predict a future that's going to happen. Okay, what else? The third way, or the final way of using going to, is by talking about future actions. Future actions is something that we could also use when we're talking about will. But in this case, the difference between them, like the one you see above here, is strong determination. We have strong determination when we are using going to for future actions. For example, I am going to score the highest mark. I'm going to score the highest mark. So, with strong determination, we talk about future actions. Future actions that have strong determinations. So, these are all the ways you could use going to and will, the modal verb will, to talk about different future predictions. So, let's do 2 or 3 exercises on how to use going to, like we did will. fill in the gaps with the best answer. Number 1. Look at the sky. Look at the sky. Okay. And one other. Okay, so these are 3 sentences that we can have by using going to. So I will give you a few seconds to answer the questions and we'll do it together. Great job. I'm sure you did so many answers together, and let's do it together. Look at the sky. How would you put here? What would you put here? It's going to rain. Look at the sky. It's going to rain. Predictions that have evidences, right? I am. The verb to be we use is am going to apply for a new job next month. Finally, they are, because they are plural, and then we use are, going to see the project completed. This is future action with strong determination. So these are all about the modal verb will and going to. I hope to see you next time. Goodbye.